Welcome everybody to the Shir of Zera Shimshon. We're back to the beginning. Breishis Bora Elohim, Eis HaShamayim ve'Eis Ha'aretz. This week is a very interesting week for me because I went to help somebody fix a Sefer Torah in Mount Clemens, and the man who introduced me to this project, he's asked me a question that they asked in shul that day. He said, why does the Torah begin with a base and not an aleph? Okay, so here, the Zera Shimshon answers this question. This is already Rosh Chodesh Aleph Mer Cheshbon of Tafshin Pei Aleph, okay? So I will begin with the first aleph in Zera Shimshon, going back over the Torah. So he says, Yishalo HaMishalo V'doya HaSeichel. So that begins with the Shem Havaya. If you see the Yud Kei Vav Kei in the first, it's typical of some Svarim to begin with the Shem Havaya in their Sefer. Lisa Bracha Me'es Hashem. That's a pasuk in Tehillim, says to bring a bracha from Hashem. V'lomid midas kainai. Learn from the knowledge of our Creator. Lehaschel kol ma'isa beremes ha'roimes lashon bracha. And to learn to bring everything we do should be with a blessing. Kisham Tzava Hashem Oisai as Berchasai. Because there, in the beginning of Breishis, God created the world with His bracha. Bracha v'chayim ad ha'olam. Okay. V'chein matzina b'midrash Yalkut Shimoni. It's a Yalkut Shimoni, Ramis base. Lama hischila Torah b'base. Why did that's the question that the man asked me. Why did the Torah begin with a base? Shehu Lashon Bracha, which is an expression of blessing. Dekasha Hari Kra Ksiv, it says in Pasuk in Tehillim, Kuf Yutes, Kuf Samach, says, Roish Devorcha Emes, the beginning of your words should be truth. Ve'im Kain Hayalei Haschal B'Torah Be'Aleph, Shehu Lashon Emes. It should begin with the word Aleph, which is an expression of truth. Hagam Ki Breishis Bora Elohim Eish, the Sefer Teva says Emes. If you look at the Pasuk, Bora ends with an Aleph. Elohim ends with a mem, and Eis ends with a saf. So that's that makes up the letters Aleph, Mem, Saf, which is Emes. Im kol zeh min aroi she'ois harishona shel Torah tiyeh be'emes. So the first letter of the Torah should be the Aleph, which begins with Emes. Kedei lekayim reish devorcha Emes b'davke. Af ki hischel b'beis, but it began with a base. Shehu lashon bracha. So what do we need? The truth, or we need the bracha? It doesn't fulfill the words at the beginning of the words should be truth. The beginning of your words, which is the Torah, should be truth. We can explain this, the Amina b'Midrash Rabbah, in Parshas Tazria. It says there in Vayikra Tazvav, Pasuk Zayin, Evin Shlema v'tzedek yelecha. You should have, when you have weights and measures, it should always be perfect. No cheating. If you do that, you'll have what to do business with, malitain, what to purchase with, malikach, and what to buy, malimkor, what to sell. Shabrachis mevorches es baalim, because the blessings bless their owners, their people that do it. The opposite is true also. Aklalis mekalis es baalim. Unfortunately, there's people that don't do the right. They try to cheat everybody, so they get the klalis. They get they're just desserts, as they say. Lo yihiacha, and they won't have the blessing. The mashma mikan she'im yisnaheg adam betzedik or be'emes tiyalei bracha. So if a person conducts himself with truth and honesty, so he will get blessing. And he doesn't do that, it's going to be a bit of a ma'aser for him. Therefore, it's good that the Torah the pasuk starts with Roish, the beginning of your words is Emes. Shehischa b'beis, shehu lashon bracha lefi shezu eina nittenis ela lemisha doiver Emes belabavai. So this blessing is only given to somebody who speaks the truth in his heart. V'davka hischel bebeis lashminan latoyeles sheyiyeh lonu v'davar emes. So davar emes. So the benefit of the base to give us the blessing is that we will have the exposition of the truth in our actions. And if we're careful with the word Breishis itself, the Oisei Shalahim Roish base. The word, if you take it apart, it adds up to Roish base. V'hainu sheroish kimoi roish devorcho emes. That's like hinting to that pasuk that the beginning of your words is the truth. Base lefi sherotza lahascha beloshen bracha. Why does it take a base? Because God wanted to begin the Torah with blessing. And that's how the beginning of the Torah is connected to the end. Sheseifa Torah hu seisa bracha. Right? Klemer, lama hischil beBreishis. Why did the whole Torah begin with Breishis? It says, Bishvil v'zaisa bracha, because this is the blessing that we should engage in. I didn't want to do the whole piece because it's way long, and this is the ikar of it, and I just had this maisa that happened to me, so it coincided perfectly, the segue. Okay, now we're going to do the segula of the Zera Shimshon. And while we are on the subject of recognizing truth in life, which is Damas, Roish Devorcho Emes, I own a business in the middle of a busy commercial district. As anyone in the world of business knows, the world of commerce is completely different than it was 20 or even 10 years ago. Today, in the advent of the internet, a businessman has to be constantly coming up with new ways to reach his clients and to make sure that they remain loyal to him. Because there are a million firms out there in cyberspace just waiting to snatch your clientele at the first available opportunity. Though I had been doing well for a number of years, it wasn't long before other people began copying me and undercutting my prices. While it was true that the level of services I provided was a much higher quality, such things are difficult to prove. The bottom line, many of my clients were leaving my firm and switching over to my competitors. At one point, a friend of mine introduced me to the Sefer Zera Shimshon, and I decided to learn it, hoping that it would serve as a segula for Parnasa. As the Mechaber writes, I didn't waste any time, and I began learning the Sefer right away. After a few weeks passed, I was already feeling emotionally connected to the Zera Shimshon, and I decided that instead of just learning the Sefer, I was going to use my business to help the Mechaber in this world. I decided to begin printing the weekly Torah newsletter, Niflois Shimshon, and I even took it upon myself to deliver the copies to a bunch of shuls in the area, thereby helping many other people learn from the Zera Shimshon's Torah. The first time I printed the newsletter, I was filled with great excitement, as if I were breaking through a spiritual wall of some type and taking a giant stride forward. As I watched the printing machine sorting the Torah of the Zera Shimshon into neat piles, I was filled with tremendous satisfaction that I too was able to help a great tzaddik from the past realize his desires. The next day was Erev Shabbos. It was a busy day, made even busier by the fact that I had undertaken to make all those deliveries. In the middle of the morning, a man entered the store. I never had seen him before. Introducing himself, he said that he wanted to place an order that needed to be ready the following Monday. I wasn't anticipating anything out of the ordinary, but the order that he placed was one of the largest I had had in months. It was such a large order that I had to come into the store on Sunday to make sure it would be ready on time. It had been a year since the last time my business had forced me to do that, and there was no question in my mind that this was connected to what I had undertaken to do for the Zera Shimshon. There was no other way to look at it. I didn't know the man. We had no common acquaintances. He didn't even live nearby. He had never heard of me, and I had no reason to give me such a lucrative account. As I went out the store that Sunday afternoon, I couldn't help picturing the stacks of Niflei Shimshon that had lain there a few days before, and realized the powerful impact that was going out of your way for a tzaddik could have. It didn't end there. Later that week, another complete stranger entered the store and placed another gigantic order with me, giving me another fresh account that I hadn't been expecting, and which I could not take any credit for. The least I could do was to put two and two together and recognize that what Chazal write, tzaddikim are greater after they pass away than when they are alive. And that, my friends, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Roish Devorcho Emes. The beginning of the whole Torah is truth, And if you learn the truth with Ein Emes Ela Torah, the Torah is truth, you will be blessed with the bracha of Breishis. Have a good week, everybody, and a good Chodesh.